Okay, today we're going to be walking through and talking about activity 2.13, putting it all together. And this is going to be a selfie stick, which is a good illustration or example of how to have several different types of joints within the same design. So I've gone ahead and I've downloaded and saved the file. So you can find that on Project Lead the Way. I'll also post this same file to Canvas, so you'll have it within modules. But I've already went ahead and created a folder, 2.1.3, putting it together, and I've gone ahead and saved a beginning file. So I'll go ahead and open that up. Go ahead and close my data panel, and what you'll see is you have the different components. So that first piece there is what they're calling the shoe top. You have the shoe bottom. You have the shoe. You have the stick adapter. You have the stick top, the stick bottom. Then you have the phone holder, which has both the top and the bottom. So all told, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different pieces. So we're going to work on how to assemble them into the completed selfie stick, and then also we're going to look at the application of joints within Fusion 360. Now, one other thing to keep in mind is we're talking about each of these being their own component. So at the parent level, the very top, we have everything. So if I click on that, then I have the ability to move the different components. If I highlight one particular, then that particular component is going to become active, and then the rest are going to be grayed out, which is going to be extremely useful. Now, to get it back, I'm just simply going to click back onto the parent entity, and then at that point, then I'll be able to move and edit these things around. Okay, so also, when we have a particular set of components that we want to look at, we can hide the others. So we're going to focus in on these 4 components that are to the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, and just by the way, if you highlight or click on one of these components, you're going to see it underlined over here. So if you're ever wondering, hey, which component is this? I can click on those and it's going to highlight, underline that particular one. So we want to turn off the stick and then the phone top and bottom. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click off these icons, icons. And then what I can also do is, now that I have the 4 that I'm looking at, I can just go over here, hit home, and then it's going to pull me in so that I can see those 4 components. Okay, so now as we move through this design, essentially what we're going to be doing is removing degrees of freedom for each of these parts and only allowing the movement that we want. So when we talk about a joint, and we will have already talked about the various kind of joints, the best way to illustrate this is if I pick a move, and actually no, I picked the wrong one, but this is fine. So what you see is that for each X, Y, and Z, I can translate. So I can actually, no, it moves both, so that's cool. All right, so I'm translating back and forth, and this is in, I think, the Z direction. You can see, let's see here, looking at my cube, that's Z. I can also translate up and down, and I can also translate right and left. So that's 3 degrees of freedom. Then the other thing I have the ability to do is rotate. So I can rotate again in each one of those degrees of freedom. So we're going to systematically take degrees of freedom away and then allow only the things that we want. So if we have a joint that rotates, we want that to be able to rotate like so. If we have a joint that moves and slides, we want it to be able to slide. So those are the 6 degrees of freedom. So let's go ahead and just cancel out this guy. So the first thing we want to do is have a basis for the drawing that there's something that doesn't move. And we call this grounding. So we're going to freeze something. And a good candidate is actually this part right here. So this is the shoe top. So if I right click on the shoe top, the second option on my menu is this ground. And what ground will do is basically hold that thing there, and so that it won't move. So if I click ground, now at this point, if I have the same thing around a move, and I pick some parts, I can still move it around there, but when I talk about it doing the other parts, it's still going to be grounded. So if I need to join these two parts, when I say join, it's going to move this part over to this as opposed to moving them together or moving this part over. So we've talked about the 6 degrees of freedom, and then we talked about grounding. So I'm going to try to break this up into 5 to 7 minutes. So that gives us about the first 5 minutes that we've opened our drawing. We familiarized ourselves with the different components, and now we've grounded our first part. So we're going to go ahead and pause here, and then we'll kick off into the next design as we start to build and construct and assemble, and then as well as apply our joints.